Hello my friends, Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa Stringworks workshop. The video for today is a little different. It's about doing some repair on our house. There's a bay window that was all cobbled up and really rotted out, and you'll even see that there were some critters had moved into it. And we're going to get rid of that bay window and replace it with just some regular windows. So I hope you enjoy the video. Go get your popcorn and your soda and just relax. My friends, we're about ready to start on tearing off this bay window. My friend Alex is going to do most of the work on this. He's going to take it upon himself to tear that window right out of there. I don't know what we're going to put back, but it's going to start with this thing going away.
Got some bees coming out.
Oh my gosh, I did not know that was there. Those look like yellow jackets, so I'm going to go get some spray and I'll be right back.
Whole life, no more corporate strife. Put your alarm clock away in the drawer. No more conference calls and no meeting.
I say they're down in this stuff.
Yeah.
In the halls and no business to conduct in a ball, and no self-serving boss nor the threat of the loss of the paycheck that I've earned 8 to 5. 'Cause I'll be out on that ranch where I can reach the first branch of that corporate tree grown from on high. I don't own it, I just manage its worth. It's a small slice of heaven placed down here on.
Taking your fun job, aren't they?
Care for his trees, water his sod. I don't own it, I just rent it from God. I know they won't miss me when I tell them I'm history. That's okay, for I've got a plan. And there'll be no regret, no hard feelings, no debt. We're all doing the best.
I'm going to hold this like this while you pull on this one. need a pry bar or something in there.
Yes, we can. So here is my last word. Some may think it absurd, but I know that someday you'll find it's better to leave than to stay and to grieve. Instead of a paycheck, you'll have peace of mind.
You need help?
Yeah. Quick, quick.
Oh, I don't know. Why didn't you call me soon? Rick.
Don't cut your hands on the nails. Grab
What
it.
do you want me to do?
Grab it. Just grab it and hold it.
Just push it in. Oh, push it in?
No, honey, no.
She said push
Just
it
support
in.
it. Just support it. Just put your hand here and hold it. There's nails everywhere.
Were you trying to salvage it? No, well, it's just gonna be
If you're both holding that, I should be able to get this with the pry bar.
I don't know that it's gonna stay.
Thanks, honey. You're a lifesaver.
Yeah, I would move back now, Jennifer. See what? Okay, watch your fingers. You got it, guys?
Yep. Okay. So,
Oh, me.
I'm going to try to, you hold that one.
What
Can you just support it while I
I
try
can
to?
stay. Yeah, I can try to. What can I do? Why don't you just
Take the whole thing.
This will go down to the ground.
Yeah.
You don't-
Yeah, honey, grab it.
I put my finger in.
Your fingers on nails.
Okay, I got it, Sue. I got it. You got it? Yeah.
Good job, honey.
You stinker.
Or
Okay,
feet.
put.
Watch all the nails. You're going to help me slide it over here.
Okay. We put Thunder back in the first stall. And I dumped out his water. I gave him fresh water, but he doesn't have any food. I didn't put hay in there. Did we do that? Yeah, we could have just a little bit. Okay.
All right, what's the nails?
Well, he looks good. I dug under his shoes or his feet, and then we. So I told the kids we need shorts, and then we were gonna do whatever you.
We might go down the river see if we get this mess cleaned up. Shouldn't be much longer. Well, we have to put plastic.
I don't want it to just manage its worth. It's a small slice of heaven placed down here on earth. I care for his trees. I wonder his son, I don't know, did he just read it from God? just manage its work. It's a small slice of heaven placed down here on earth. I care for his trees, I water his sun, and don't own it.
Go away, buddy. One perfect. Go, go, go.
Just rent it from God.
Got it.
Probably don't need the valve. Now,
I can reach.
if it's gonna rain and it does this with just the sprinklers, can I tuck something under here? Are you guys gonna change it? I'm going to.
No, this will keep water out.
Oh, you're doing that too. Won't it mold? You're trapping the water? At least we gotta know. We're gonna have to run the 2x4.
Doesn't this look huge, like a big window? I'm gonna put my desk here now.
Yeah,
It does. You should.
it really does.
Do you know what kind of windows you're putting in?
No, they'll be like our back windows. They'll be similar.
Yeah.
Well, my friends, I thought I would evaluate what I have to do to put these windows in. It's a little too damp and hot and humid out there to work on the horse trailer. This is a little bit in the shade for the time being, though it will quickly become sunny. So I'm going to strip off the plastic and stuff and see what I have to do. As it is right now, the opening width-wise is plenty wide. The height-wise, I think I'm going to be about a ½ inch short. So let me check the window measurements and see what they recommend. Well, according to my measurements and actually measuring the window and everything, it's probably closer to an inch. So we've got an 1.5 inch 2x4 there, and that board happens to be sitting on something else. So I think I'm just going to tear that out, and the top is not movable, so the top I can't do anything with, but I can get rid of this board here, and then we can substitute a thinner board or something to make it work. So we'll have to tear it out first and see where we go from there. I don't know what I did before I had this. This thing is so handy on little jobs like that. You could do it a lot of ways, but that just fits the job. It really does. It works great. Well, I'm afraid this is all going to be nailed drywall-wise to this anyway, but I'm hoping I can knock a lot of this out without tearing up the drywall on the inside. I wish I could zoom this out a little bit, but the problem is if I move it back, it's in the sun and that causes a problem. So I just have to leave the camera where it's at for now. You can't see it. There's a drywall on the inside here nailed to this. And I don't really want to bust that drywall all to pieces. It's got wallpaper on it and stuff, and it'll just be nicer if we don't have to deal with that. So I've got another oscillating tool with a metal cutting blade, and I'm going to go through here and try to cut off all the drywall nails and see how that works. Well, there you go. That worked great. If I can find it on Amazon, I'll put it in the products I use page. These things are killer. This one's the battery one, and I just keep a nail cutting blade in it for the most part. The one with the cord, I keep it for cutting wood for the most part. I can interchange them and switch them if I need to or want to, but that really is handy to have two of these things. And made short work of that. I'm glad I did that because this wasn't done very well anyway, and I can improve all this. Now we should have more than enough room, I would think, to fit the windows in. Yep, we've got plenty. Maybe a little over a ½ inch more than we need. So I probably can get a 3/4 inch board in here now, and that'll be good for a sill plate. It'd be nice if I could get a 2x in here. I'd rather have that, but it just isn't going to fit. Well, my friends, I went down to my cedar that I had sawn on the farm when Alex was here and cut out a board 6 inches wide. This board had bark on both sides. It was just barely good enough to get a full 6-inch board out of, and that's what I have. Now I don't know that it's going to fit here yet. I cut it pretty tight. Actually, it looks like it might go. It's going to be really tight. I did that on purpose. I cut it tight on purpose because I didn't want to have you know, it loose, and I might be able to knock it in there. I'm not sure it'll go yet, but we'll try. I think I'm going to have to take it out and try it again. Well, I went back and cut a solid 1/8 inch off the length of this board. It seems to fit in there fairly well. I'm just going to do a sanity check and measure the height of this now and see if it's going to work. These top boards are cut kind of rough, and this board is sticking down a little bit, so I'm going to probably have to trim that and trim a little bit more where it's sticking down, but other than that I think it's going to fit. So I'll try trimming those, hopefully with this, and maybe I can reach it. I don't know if I can reach it or if I'm going to need a ladder. Well, that wasn't easy, but I think it'll work. I don't know how I'm going to do this yet because I'm dealing with stucco. The stucco comes out about 1 inch. I really don't know how I'm going to frame this out yet. It's not your standard window replacement, which is typical for this place. Nothing's standard. Everything is very unique and very difficult to deal with. Well, a whole lot of figuring off camera. And I've decided that the only thing I can do is bring this whole frame out, even with this old wood that's here. It's got a tar paper over it, and it's what the stucco's attached to. So I'm bringing everything out flush to that, and then we'll go from there. It's still not going to be simple, but at least if I do that, I have a chance of making this thing fairly straight and square. And anyway, we'll see how it goes. I've put a small board down in here. This angles this way, which is the wrong way. It should, if anything, it should be angled out this way. It's just the way they built it back then, and it's just the stucco and everything's built up, and that's part of it. So this brings it up higher than the stucco. So I'm going to try to get this little block in here level first. That's going to be my first thing. That's pretty darn level. So down here I need to shim it a little bit. I've got some shims that I made, so I'll shim on this end down here. I'm going to have to shim this little spacer piece up a little bit. So I'm going to try that, try a little shim and start with that first. It's pretty close. So what I'll probably do is cut the end of this shim off and stick it in there a little further. So just cut it off like that. That makes it thicker, and I'll stick it in there a little bit more. And that's pretty darn level right there. I may just drive a nail in that. These nails are just long enough and big enough to go through both of those down into the base. Maybe that'll hold it up to the right level. That looks pretty good. And probably need a tiny shim down at that end. I don't think it needs as much. That's good enough. It's pretty darn flat, pretty darn level. What I'm going to do now is get a vacuum, clean this all out, and then I'm going to caulk this really good, this spacer board. My other board's going to sit on top of it, but I'll caulk this joint so the air can't filtrate in there, and there's also some other joints in different places, so I'm going to get all that caulked for air tightness. Now we'll put my sill board on. I had to recut this. I cut it at 3.5 inches first, and I forgot that I'm building this sill out, so I had to go back and recut it at 4.5 inches wide. And that should take care of that. I'm going to double check level and all that good stuff again, but I'm pretty sure it's got to be pretty level. Yeah, it's right on the money. I'll just nail that down. In fact, before I nail it down, I'm going to run a bead of caulk right on top of that, and that'll seal it for sure. It'll glue it down. Quite honestly, I'm not 100% sure the window's going to fit yet. I shouldn't have nailed that. And you know my luck, it probably won't fit, but I've already this far. A couple more nails ain't going to hurt nothing. Really, before I can check that, I've got to put, I made 2 of these. This one's for this side, and I got to cut it off a little bit. I left them a little long on purpose because I wanted to make sure they would reach down here. So I do have to cut it off a little bit. problem is I got a teeter-totter going because it's sticking out here, but I think that's just this tar paper. So I'll use my knife to cut the tar paper off. Looks better. Makes a mess on my knife though. I guess I'll just nail that up. Before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and test a window here. I think it should fit, but we'll find out. Let me double check this length before I even try, because it's right on the money. It'll either go or it won't go, and it'll be by a 1/16 of an inch. That's just all there is to it. And of course, it's a 1/16 of an inch the wrong way. I kind of figured that would happen. It's right on it's just on the bleeding edge of working. And you got to work with what you got. Yeah, it's really close. I might be able to trim it and make it work. I don't know. I mean, I'm talking like it's like just a 1/16 of an inch or an 1/8 of an inch at the most. Ah, man, nothing's ever simple. Each corner has like a plastic weld, and you don't want to cut that whole weld off, but there's wings on that weld that are sticking out. So I cut the wings off. They aren't holding anything. I didn't cut the weld itself. That might be just enough to make this thing work. I cut it off of both ends. That'll give me, you know, an 1/8 inch clearance maybe. Let's see. Just enough. I mean, like, just enough. If it was a 1/16 of an inch bigger, yeah, it wouldn't go. It's just enough. And now you're going to say, well, you can't level it now. Well, yeah, I know that. But stuff, you just got to do what you got to do. Fortunately, it's pretty darn level. It could be a little bit better, but it'll still function. So that's as good as it's going to get right there. What I'm doing right now is measuring right here. I've marked it, you know, a little place right here where the window comes to, and I'm going to try to mark it up here too. And that way I'll know, you know, that's absolutely airtight right there. It doesn't fall out even when you let go of it. We'll just see if there's anything we can do to make that a little bit better. There might still be a little bit of trimming I can do. The way things are manufactured, there's always slight differences, so I'm going to try the other window on the other side, and I'm going to keep them on their respective sides. I'm going to mark it too. All right, so I'm going to set this window in here. Well, actually, I didn't build this corner out yet, but I'm looking for height right at the moment. Yep, it's going to fit. Oh my gosh. I'll take that. All right, well, I got to build this little corner out first. I got ahead of myself. I got to take it back out, but that's not a bad result.
You've heard a song about a horse or two. Well, here's one more, and I swear it's true. The finest horse you've ever seen. His name was Phantom 614. A proud young stallion with head held high.
Wow. I can't believe unfortunately how close it is to the other mark. That's not good, but it's what I got. What a bummer. I asked them at Menards if they had kits to tie windows together, and they said they didn't even know anything about that. And I know they make them, or used to make them years ago, where you could tie two windows together with a plastic kit, but they knew nothing about it, and therefore I didn't have any option there. So the problem is this window, show you is I'll just measure the gap between the windows. The gap measures exactly 3/4 of an inch. So I can put a 3/4 inch board in between there, and that's it. It would be really nice if I could get a 1.5 to 3 inch board in there. Would be really nice. But it is what it is. I mean, I could have gotten smaller windows, there's no doubt, but we didn't want smaller windows. We wanted to be able to see out as much as possible. So I'll just make this work somehow. I don't know how, but I'll figure it out. Well, as luck would have it, I ripped this very carefully to the right width, but it's an 1/8 inch too wide, and that's holding the windows out at the bottom so that they're not flush. So I've got to find a way to rip it down, and I'm just going to do the best I can. It's a pain trying to use a saw in an angle like that. When you're sitting on the narrow edge of this thing, it just rocks back and forth. Ain't nothing fun about that, but I think I did okay on it. It's fairly straight. I'll run a bead of caulk along there to catch the rest of it. Of course, the circular saw can't finish the cuts, so I'll finish the cuts with this.
His cold like satin under candlelight, his mane and tail, oh how they sheen. His name was Phantom 614.
Well, it's straight if you like crooked. But anyway, like Jimmy DeResta says, if it looks straight, it is straight. It looks fairly straight if you don't look at it too close. Okay, I'm trying not to get too far ahead of myself. I'm going to try to get some insulation crammed in there. We already crammed the little bit of loose insulation that was under there before. It's already crammed in there. And now we've got some fresh insulation here that we're going to stick in there. Lots of people complain about this kind of insulation being itchy. This new stuff, I don't think it's itchy at all compared to the old stuff. The old stuff used to just itch you to death. It was real glass wool. This stuff here is, I don't find it itchy at all. But a lot of people just claim it is, and they have a fit with it. But for me, it doesn't feel like there's any problem with this new stuff at all. Anyway, you just take a little wedge like this and cram it back into places, make them airtight. I can tell you for sure that's a lot more insulation that was in there from the first guy, or from Bob, who I'm sure put in that bay window.
Just a young man at the time, I knew that one day he'd be mine, and I would ride there like a king up on the back of 614.
Some people say you don't want to pack it in real tight. Well, in a place like this, I don't think it really matters that much as long as you get it stuffed full. In big areas, you don't want it packed real tight, I know that. I can get this from the inside of the house, but there's places under here that I'm just going to cram some insulation in, and we'll cover it with trim boards later. Okay, I think that's satisfactory. There's probably places along, down this stuff here that I'll try to get insulation in these cracks down, going up and down too. I may caulk this also, and I might be able to do that even after the window's in here, but the biggest problem with this, believe it or not, is it's got chicken wire on it because of putting this stucco on. So that stuff's in the way. It's a real pain. It's not going to let me put it in there unless I cut all that chicken wire off. I think instead I'm just going to squirt caulk in there. I think caulk will be just fine in this case. I'm going to run a bead of caulk along this bottom sill. Very small bead, mostly because it's not perfectly smooth anymore.
The trainer said, son, he can't be rode. Stay away, boy, or you'll be thrown. He said that horse house is just plain mean. His name was Phantom 614.
Now I'm going to set both windows in place and just tack them in place, and the trim that goes between them, I'm going to do that from the inside of the house and figure it out as I go, because it's just impossible to try to make it fit the way it is. Okay, well, that was easy. Not. It didn't want to go. For whatever reason, it didn't want to go. But it's in there. It's staying in there.
That horse and I, our souls were one. Without any fear, I climbed upon the back of the one they said was me. His name was Phantom 614. A one-man horse to me proved true. The people.
Honestly, there's very little to nail to because of the way this is working. And now I'm going to be nailing into very hard oak, which ain't going to be fun.
Stare as we ride through a sight which few have ever seen. His name was Phantom 614.
Well, it ain't gonna go nowhere. It's definitely gonna stay there. I'm not gonna get too crazy on the nailing right now. I'm gonna put the other one in, see how it fits. I hope they fit together.
His name was Phantom 614.
The two strips completely overlap and touch, but they fit. I'll take it. It's as good as it could be done, I think, for the circumstances we're working under. I've done harder window jobs, I'm sure, but this one wasn't easy, that's for darn sure. That's good enough for now. I'll probably put one more nail up in that corner, and that'll be good enough for the moment. It's too hot out here to deal with the rest of this. Well, as I said, this is anything but a standard installation. You know, it worked out okay, the fact that they're overlapped like that. Now I'm going to have to make a special wooden trim on the inside to fill that gap. It's just going to be what it is, but at least we got the biggest windows we could fit in there, and that'll give us the best view out the front, and the rest of it is just has to make it work the way it has to work. We'll show you more progress as it cools off and I get back to it. Well, my friends, I've done a little bit of off-camera work. I went ahead and nailed the plastic all the way around, so it's all nailed very well. I caulked a few more places. I put the trim board in above, which you can barely see, but I can't tilt the camera much because of the sun. But as you can see, the sun's already washing it out. But that top board is already in, as you can see. And then I've got this center board in. Now on the inside, if you recall, the plastic overlapped like this. So the plastic was overlapped. So what I did was I filled this gap with a piece of cedar, and on the inside I filled it with a piece of cedar, and then I screwed the outside piece into the inside piece. So the inside has no holes or marks that you can see. The inside piece is also bigger, by the way, than this piece is. But anyway, to make a long story short, it filled the gap really well. I put caulk on both sides of it, so it's kind of squeezed the caulk in between them. So anyway, all that's real good. The top and the center's real good. Now I'm working on the side trim and the bottom trim. And there's nothing standard about doing this at all because of this stucco especially. And this stucco is very old, but it's in remarkably good shape. So I don't want to mess with the stucco. So what I've done is I've cut a special sill board that goes under the window, and it's kind of a special cut. if you look here, and I don't know if the camera can see it in the angle we are, but you'll see the bevel here. So this goes under the window, and then this bevel lets the water run off. And then as the water runs off, it has a tendency to run back under. And if you see here, I've cut a slot in it. And so when the water gets down to this, it'll run back and it'll hit that slot and drip off. So that's what the purpose of all that is. It's a lot of work to make that piece. And it doesn't fit in there yet because, wouldn't you know, my luck, that stucco is beveled on each end. So I have to cut these corners off to match that bevel. It's just, it never ends. This is one of the most complicated retrofits you'll ever see. But anyway, I'm going to try to just cut these off with my little oscillating cutter, and we'll see if it works. I've already marked the approximate angle and the approximate cut I need to make, so I'm just going to cut it off. All right, I'm going to test fit this in just before I do the other end. Well, that looks pretty good so far, so I'm just going to call that good for the moment, and I'll try cutting this end off, and we'll see if it'll fit in there. It'll either work or it won't. The problem won't be so big that we can't caulk it and fix it. So here we go. Well, I gotta say, for the kind of mess I've got there, it fits it surprisingly well. So I'll call that good enough. And now my only problem is, how do I fasten it? And honestly, this is a hard problem because it's just a hard problem. It's hard to explain. I might be able to cut a teeny bit more off and make it fit better. Actually, I think I will. I think I'll cut just a tiny bit more off the back edge of this angle here and right in here, and I think it'll fit a little bit better even than it does. I'm pretty amazed how well it does fit. Yeah, I think that's actually better. So that's good. Just for guessing on the angles and everything, it fits really pretty close. So I think what I'm going to do is drill these holes and drive in finish nails, but I'm going to drill with a smaller hole than the finish nail. I don't want this to split out, and I don't want to try to be driving through 2 inches of wood, 2 1/4 inches of wood with a finish nail and take the chance of bending it and all that. So I think it'll just save me time in the long run and look better if I just drill it ahead of time, drive the nails through. So that's what I'm going to try to do. Probably not going to be able to see all this. The sun's really getting bright, and I have to keep the camera in the shade, and when I keep the camera in the shade, it gets too close. So it's just the way it is. I'm going to drill several holes. I'm going to use screws instead of nails. I found some screws. I didn't think I had screws long enough, but I did find some. So I'm going to drill some holes and try to get this held in place. I'm going to do this a little bit awkward on this first hole because I'm going to try to get it to hold the wood in place. So I'm going to put a chamfer on this, a countersink, to sink the screw head, and then I'll use a different drill to drive the screws here. Yeah, that worked pretty well. I think that'll work. So I'll go through and drill a series of holes now. So I've got this bit is set to the thickness of this wood, so I don't drill into the piece that will be holding this. I'm going to put a screw about every a foot or so, something like that. I'll divide it into 3 spaces here.
chamfer all those holes, and then we'll drive the screws. I think this is working out pretty well. I think it's going to be just fine. That's very firm now. That's very, very nice. That's never going to move or go anywhere. And it's got the little bevel on it, which is nice. So I think all that's really good. And it's made out of cedar, which should be really rot resistant. You know, I made it out of cedar because I have it. You know, I have my own sawmill. I cut my own wood here on the farm. And not that it matters, but 90% of this house was built with wood cut right here on the farm. They're either logs or rough sawn sawmill lumber. That's just a side note, but I'm basically keeping with tradition by doing that. Now I'm going to start working on these side boards, and you would think that that'd be simple, but it won't be. And the reason is there's a bevel on this again. This, you can't really tell it in the picture, but this is not square. This is beveled in like this at an angle. And so I'll have to cut a board that'll be the width of this long angle and then put an angle on it to make it fit in this slot. So it's not real hard because you can do that on the table saw. But it is more complicated than just fitting a standard square board in there. And of course, just to make things a little bit more complicated, it's 3 3/4 on this side to the long edge of the angle and 3 5/8 on that side. So, and then I've got to cut a length too. Hopefully the lengths are the same, but I doubt it. 5 feet and maybe a 1/16 of an inch. I'm going to say 5 foot and a 1/16 of an inch on both of them, so that's a little better. Okay, well, I'm going to go make those boards and then I'll be back to put them in. Well, my friends, I'm in the middle of making these trim pieces for the ends. So I went and got an angle gauge to check what the angle is on this. And I don't know the actual angle number, but when I compared one side to the other, they're exactly the same. And I mean, like, there's no light at all. It's exactly the same. So whoever did that work with the stucco really knew their business, because the whole house has been stuccoed probably back in the 40s or 50s, somewhere in there, and it's never cracked or given any trouble. Well, I fitted the first piece in with the angle cut and everything. To give you an idea of what the angle cut looks like, you can see it there. So it's a steep angle. It turned out it was 41.5 degrees. At least that's according to my table saw, which I assume it's fairly accurate. It really does fit very well. I'm very happy with the fit. So I think I'll just slap some caulk on this edge right here, and maybe on this edge, and well, all the way around on the edges, I guess, and try to put it in there and get her nailed up. I'm just setting the nails flush with the surface. I'll come back and set them in deeper and fill them later. That really did turn out nice. I'm really happy with the way that fits. I made the board thick enough to come out about where the window is, be a little smaller than the top board, and yet stick out proud of this stucco. So it all worked out really good. I can caulk this stucco edge now, and I'll probably caulk along the window too, even though there is caulk in that seam. Worked out just about as good as it could possibly work out. Well, the reason I started on the other side is I couldn't get this one to fit in before, but now it fits in just fine. So I don't know what happened or what changed, but it fits really good. So I guess we'll get the caulk on this one too. done. Now it's just caulking and painting pretty much. Filling, caulking, and painting. Well, so my friends, I'm going to call that finished. We've got the inside to work on, but my wife is actually doing that.
Well, my friends, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please give me a big thumbs up. I would really appreciate that. If you have not yet subscribed, please do that as well. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you on the next video.